Guys, so new video tonight. I'm gonna try and speak for the duration of this video without mentioning, I'll mention them here, but without again mentioning the words Anthony and Joshua. You know, we've discussed it a lot on the channel recently, and I want to hit you with one or two different things tonight. Let's start with the heavyweight division. Let's talk David Price. David Price has started training with Dave Coldwell. Dave Coldwell trains Liverpool fighter Tony Bellew, also Gavin and Jamie McDonnell. I've met Dave Coldwell, very, very nice guy, very good fitness trainer. I believe this is a terrible decision from David Price. A terrible decision from David Price. And to be honest, a decision that at this stage of his career, in his 30s, with several recent losses, this is the kind of decision that potentially may ruin his last chance. Because if David Price comes back again, spends a year knocking out a few journeymen, building himself back up, and takes another loss in 18 months, 24 months time, another bad KO, it might be very, very hard for him to come back again with 4 KO losses to his name in his 30s. You know, Dave Coldwell, nothing against him personally, but for me, what David Price needs to do is sign with an elite heavyweight boxing trainer. A guy who is really going to highlight the defensive frailties in his game, the fact that he's too upright, the fact that his head movement is limited, the fact that he's too stiff, and work on that. You know, there is some truth in the phrase that you can't teach an old dog new tricks, and I know that it may be counterintuitive to completely take David Price back to square one, but let's be honest, what he's currently doing isn't working. And both times he's stepped up to, you know, top 10, top 20 in the world level, he's been knocked out. So, for me, Dave Coldwell wasn't the right choice, you know. What's Dave Coldwell's track record of building heavyweight champions to world title level? You know, Dave Coldwell's marquee fighter is Tony Bellew. Tony Bellew's idea of defence is blocking a guy's jab with his chin. You know, let's be honest, Tony Bellew is one of the most defensively inept fighters that you will see fighting at the level he campaigns at. You know, Bellew is a fighter who is wildly inaccurate and who simply cannot block a jab. We've seen it time and time again. And whether that's Bellew's fault, whether that's Coldwell's fault, you know, who knows. But for me, David Price needed someone who would be able to iron out those sort of chinks in his armour. And I'm not sure Dave Coldwell's the man. You know, David Price has always turned up to fights with a very chiselled physique. He's always been in good physical condition. You know, I know he's looked gassed in fights before, but I think that was more to do with the Lennox Lewis debacle when he got involved. But my point is, did David Price really need to sign with Dave Coldwell for fitness? No, he needed to sign with Dave Coldwell for boxing and for improving his game in that sense. And I'm just not convinced that Dave Coldwell has the experience to iron out the chinks in his armour, as I say, and build him up to that level. You know, Price is targeting a return in April. I know I did say at the start of this video I'd try not to say the words Anthony and Joshua. I'm going to fail that, I'm afraid, because I do think his return is possibly linked to the success of Anthony Joshua. You know, clearly Joshua is going to have some voluntary challenges for his belt if he was to be successful against Charles Martin. You know, the potential for 2 voluntary challenges this year. I sense that Eddie Hearn doesn't like the David Haye fight this year. Tyson Fury's tied up. Derek Chisora may well lose to Kubrat Pulev. So David Price may want to position himself for a mandatory challenger shot against Anthony Joshua. You know, he's seen the money that Dillian White's making. He's probably deduced that Charles Martin is making huge money by fighting Joshua, and maybe he's wanting some of that. maybe he genuinely believes he can beat Joshua. You know, there are rumours in the UK, substantial rumours as well, that David Price knocked Anthony Joshua unconscious when sparring some time ago. And maybe David Price, is having memories of those sparring sessions and is thinking that he would like one last crack at that. Especially if you consider that David Price has only ever lost to fighters who then tested positive for steroids and performance-enhancing drugs. So, I can see why he wants to give it another go. I can see why he's tempted back by, the heavyweight division being so live at present. Tyson Fury's a huge fight. David Hayes a huge fight. Anthony Joshua's a huge fight. And David Price puts himself back in the mix with those fights if he gets a few back-to-back wins. He's also stablemate of Derek Chisora, so if Derek Chisora were to be successful against Kubrat Pulev, that's another fight you can throw into the mix. And, I guess David Price is viewing one more shot or one more payday, depending on how cynical you want to be, before he hangs up his gloves and goes back to the day job. Now, let's change the pace a bit. Let's drop from heavyweight division to the light heavyweight division, to the super middleweight turning into light heavyweight, Frank Buglioni. So the news has broken today that Buglioni is no longer going to be working with Frank Warren. I saw in an IFL TV video the other day that Frank was seemingly hopeful of coming to terms with Buglioni. So presumably there's been some sort of debate as to how much money Frank Buglioni would want to re-sign with Frank Warren and Queensberry Promotions. I read about it on Boxing Scene, and the Boxing Scene article did say there was rumours, due to Buglioni being such a high ticket seller, he would sign with Eddie Hearn. Now, for me, I think Frank Buglioni is being, at the end of the day, you're in boxing to make a load of money, aren't you? And credit to him for that. For me, I would have tried to stay with Frank Warren. Frank Warren has put a lot of time and effort into Buglioni. He's built him well. He's had him headlining shows from quite an early stage of his career. And to be honest, he did the unthinkable and got him a world title shot out of nowhere. Got him home advantage for that as well. Put up the money to bring a new champion over. If you look at Buglioni's performance before winning that world title, before fighting for that world title, what did he do? Well, he got knocked out by Sergei Kamitsky, who was recently soundly outpointed by John Ryder at middleweight. Yet Buglioni was knocked out by Kamitsky at £168. And then he drew to Lee Markham. How many world boxing fans have heard of Lee Markham? Yet Buglioni dropped a draw to him. Yet Frank Warren, off the back of performances like that, got him home advantage for a world title fight, which people gave him a solid chance in. Frank Warren did an exceptional job of building Buglioni to that point. Now, I imagine Buglioni didn't get the biggest payday for that fight. Clearly Frank had to pay the lion's share to the world champion. He probably had to pay a lot to get him over for the fight. Buglioni may have had to have taken that fight on the cheap. Maybe he's had mates in boxing. I don't know. I know he's mates with Spike O'Sullivan. Presumably Spike O'Sullivan may have got a bigger payday for the Eubank Jr. fight than Buglioni got for his world title fight. And that was on a Matchroom side. Maybe he's hearing rumours like that and he wants to make more money. But what I would say is, he's going over to Matchroom, if he is going to Matchroom. I'm speculating. Maybe it's nothing to do with money, by the way. I'm purely speculating here. This is just pure speculation based on no fact at all. But he's going over to Matchroom. He's not going to be one of their marquee fighters. He's not going to be one of their pay-per-view fighters. He's going to be a undercard fighter at best for them. And I'm just not sure his career will get the same concentration that it would otherwise have got. I anticipate he'll be used on London cards as an Anthony Joshua undercard fighter. And with all the money being used for Anthony Joshua and his opponents right now, I'm not sure Buglioni's going to get the life-changing paydays appearing on those undercards. Eddie Hearn, if they do work together, may have a huge plan to get him to be light heavyweight champion of the world. To be honest, the light heavyweight division is looking pretty strong right now. Kovalev, Stevenson at the top, guys like Isaac Chilemba, Elijah Alvarez, Bernard Hopkins still doing the rounds, Artur Beterbiev. I don't see Frank Buglioni beating any of those guys. I don't see him getting to the top of that division. It's a much tougher division. It's going to be hard for him. And I'd have been inclined to stay with Frank Warren, someone who's proven that they're going to back you, and someone who is not afraid to make you the star of your own show. I question whether he'll get that same exposure signing with Eddie Hearn. Frank Buglioni's a decent fighter. He's not the most impossible to outbox. He's quite hittable. Lee Markham was able to steal multiple rounds of him. Maybe he'll improve for the move up to light heavyweight. I really don't like his trainer, Pascal Collins. I think Pascal Collins is one of the most overrated trainers in the game. I think some of the advice I've witnessed Pascal Collins giving Buglioni during previous fights is up there with some of the most terrible corner work I've ever seen. I remember Pascal Collins once describing I think it was the Andrew Robinson fight, he described Buglioni's performance as a defensive masterclass. Which was a bizarre comment if you saw that fight. But yeah, regardless, Buglioni's a nice guy. I met him personally, very nice guy. There's a lot of time for the fans. I wish him all the best for his career. We'll see where he turns up. It hasn't been announced he's signing with Eddie. He may sign with Mick Hennessy, he may sign with someone else, who knows. But it does seem clear to me that Frank Warren did want to hold on to Buglioni. So I reckon Buglioni is leaving because he's got another option, or he believes he's going to get another option. What's the route for him at light heavyweight? It's not a division where there's a thriving domestic scene, really. Not big money domestic fights. I don't see how Buglioni's going to get that big paydays. I don't see how he's going to make his way to a world title route easily. But I want to hear your thoughts. Let me know. The return of David Price with Dave Coldwell, for me, bad decision. Frank Buglioni leaving Frank Warren, for me, bad decision. Let me know your thoughts. Am I being too sceptical? If you've enjoyed this video, hit the thumbs up button. Please hit the subscribe button as well. Wouldn't want you to miss out on my future videos. Thanks a lot for watching, guys.